All right, thanks for tuning into another episode of the Why Influence podcast, where we interview influencers about why they're sharing. Today, we have an awesome guest. His name is Rich Cardona, and Rich, I found him through LinkedIn. Some of my connections were engaging on his content, and I saw he was doing a good job there. So then I dug deeper into what he's doing, and he's an awesome guy. So I decided to reach out. But basically, he's got his own media company helping people create stories and create video content and share them on different platforms. He's doing a great job sharing videos on LinkedIn, but he's also got YouTube that he's become more active on, as well as a podcast. You've got about 35 episodes on your podcast called The Leadership Locker. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come on here and share with us today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and anything I could do to, help your audience is exactly why I do podcasts. So I'm excited for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks so much. So just in your own words, can you tell us maybe 2 or 3 sentences about like what your brand is all about?
Yeah, I'll do 2 of them. On the business side, it's literally to help executives get more visibility through video. And then on the kind of personal side, it's literally to try and influence transitioning service members and veterans. By influence, I mean encourage them to realize that entrepreneurship is a completely viable option, and that's like my passion. So that's what I would say for those 2.
Nice, yeah, that's awesome. And just to bring back to the intro a little bit, so you've got about 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is pretty solid, and then you've got about 3,000 on Instagram, and you've got about 250 subscribers on YouTube, and that seems like a newer venture for you, but you've been consistent with it, and you got nice artwork on there. I can see where things are headed there. But just to give a little bit of background of where you're at with those.
Yeah, LinkedIn is my entire business, which is why I'm making sure I'm everywhere else in case one day, if you rely too much on a platform, then obviously there's the possibility that that platform could just go away, or that platform just is taken over by another platform. So I try and be multiple places, but LinkedIn is where I love to live. I think that's where a lot of people that I aspire to work with, that's where their clients are as well. So it makes complete sense. And more importantly, I mean, I talk about it pretty often, but the organic reach on LinkedIn is pretty good. Yeah, you mentioned 15,000, and that's over probably after I've been working on that, so to speak, for probably 18 months. Before that, though, I mean, who knows? But I could never do that on Instagram.
Right.
I can't
especially
do that
nowadays to get 15 grand.
Oh, come on, man. So I mean, and then on Facebook, so LinkedIn is not only a good spot, but it's changing. It's not as professional and buttoned up as people thought it, or as it was. So it gives people like me an opportunity, and people like you, like who look. I know we both look for good, authentic content. Like it's easier to find now than I think it was probably a couple years ago.
I definitely agree with that. So before we jump into things, do you mind sharing like an unintended consequence, like somebody that you've impacted recently, or just at any point as a result of sharing?
Yeah, so I'm so glad, because my project manager, Steve, heard me on a podcast. And the reason I got on that podcast to begin with was because I was sharing content. So Steve helps out with this podcast, and he got in touch with me and just said that podcast I felt like was meant for me. Everything you were talking about is relevant to me right now, and it just helped me really think differently about my military transition. So he's a veteran, and I was like, awesome. And he, I didn't know what to say except thank you. I wrote him a long message back, and he goes, by the way, I help out on that podcast, so if you need help, let me know. I'm like, yes. And he's like, oh, I'm willing to do it for nothing. I'm like, you're nuts, so no, here, why don't I compensate you? If you could help take some of this podcast stuff off my plate, I'll be incredibly grateful. So those responsibilities have grown, and now he's a project manager, and I cannot even tell you how much smoother things are running since he's kind of organized it. And I'm an operations guy. I used to be an operations guy, so I get organization and processes and systems, but not when it's my own business. I'm just trying to do a million different things. So that is an unintended, consequence, so to speak. And it's just been I'm so happy about it. And I mean, it's all because I was creating content.
Wow. Yeah. So you were a guest on a podcast,
Yeah.
and the guy that helps with that podcast connected with you, and
Yeah.
then now he's your project manager as a
Yeah.
result of liking you so much as a
Yeah. I
guest on
mean, the
it. Wow.
message resonated. And look, I just want to say one more thing. Like, so many people are afraid to make content because they want to make sure they say something meaningful and that, it resonates with people and all that stuff. But like, whatever you put out on any given day isn't going to reach the masses like you think it is. So if you draw that down and reduce it like a fraction, so to speak, to the lowest common denominator, and you impact one person like Steve, then that is like, that's just how you know you're really headed in the right direction. It's never going to be the metrics. I mean, it's just not that way.
Yeah, it's not a numbers game. It's more about depth of relationships nowadays than
Yeah,
like numbers.
agree.
Yeah, and that's what podcasting allows, like long form conversation, get the deep conversations there, and then like other platforms sometimes there are multiple touch points, but you get deep just through those multiple touch points.
Agree. I couldn't agree more, for sure.
Awesome. So would you say that your LinkedIn's your primary platform?
Yeah.
Just so I know where to.
I mean, I test it so often. I've tested videos, I've tested pictures, I've tested captions, I've tested copy, I've tested articles, external links, pods. I've been in engagement pods, like all of it. I've tested all of it. And the reason why I do that is so that way I could serve my clients better. So I could help them avoid some of the stuff that I know doesn't work. And what I found, and you know this, but video wins everywhere right now. I mean, the biggest growing platform, whether you like it or not, is TikTok. And that is 15 to 60-second videos. That's it. And some of the best videos are 10 seconds long. Every platform caters to video. So that was obviously like the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak. And then all the rest of it is kind of mechanics. But yeah, LinkedIn is truly a great growth engine for anyone trying to build their personal brand and company brand through their personal brand.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that before we jump into your why.
Yeah.
Let's say like somebody who has been on LinkedIn for a long time but never posted any content, and they're looking, okay, let me like try to build some credibility in this space. What would be some of your biggest advice to get that person started? Get them rolling?
That's like, you could go so many different directions, but here's what I would say. If you want to build connections, you probably want to build connections with people that are in your industry or people that interest you or people that you quote unquote aspire to be. So if I'm if I'm in the traditional workforce and I want to be a vice president at JP Morgan, then okay, then I should probably start following JP Morgan and people in that industry or people in that company. If I'm an entrepreneur or if I'm a video creator, then I should follow other video creators. I shouldn't not connect with them because I'm scared of them or they're better than me. I should probably do that so I could learn with them and engage with them. So what I'm trying to get at is that you should engage in industry topics and industry personnel of what interests you. If you've been what a lot of people call lurkers, who kind of consume the content but don't actually do anything with it,
Right.
and that's probably the easiest first step, because you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't mean you have to make content. It just means you need to engage. Now, what can happen from that? People will go to your profile and people will want to connect with you, and people will be like, okay, cool. Like, he's a good dude or she's a good dude, whatever, or she's a good person, whatever. But that's when it comes to your profile should be presentable, and that's like a whole different bag. But no selfies in the car. It should be, every camera basically has portrait mode. Have someone take a good portrait shot of you, how you look, or if you need a suit and tie to be working at the place that you want to be working at, then wear that uniform or that outfit, so to speak. Use the cover photo area. That cover photo, that banner is digital real estate, meaning it could say exactly what you do. So mine, I changed it recently, but it should say, if I didn't include that I had a podcast, or if I didn't include that I was a veteran or
Right.
my business, then it doesn't make sense. So that way there's a lot less guesswork. And I don't want to say people don't connect with other people because their profile is bad, but it does show you took the time to just think about what the experience would be like if someone did come to your profile and want to get to know you a little bit. So the very first thing I would say to answer your question is just engage in industry topics. And that's it. You will quickly find out that you will be able to contribute a lot more than you think. And that's a great feeling. And obviously you're going to learn.
Right. And so when you're starting out, you don't have to just start posting on your wall and sharing your content, putting stuff out there. You decide where it is that you want to go, what experts you want to, get in touch with, or who you want to be in the future, and just start engaging with the people that are a couple steps ahead of you and just sort of learning what they're doing and then engaging on that to just get started.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So yeah, just start engaging with people where you want to be. And I think that's the easiest first step. And it's the least scary, so to speak, too. Like, look, I work with people who have fears of making content. And I don't mean like fears like, scared of snakes, I mean, just
Right.
like the fears of not putting a post that's good enough, or not making it good enough, or writing poorly, or whatever it may be. But that is a really easy way to kind of just start getting some sort of soft reps, so to speak, to start, gaining a following and connections on that platform.
Right. Yeah, and you really have to give before you can ask or anything like that too. So by engaging and adding value to all these things, you're not just posting, sharing your stories or asking for things right off the bat. Like, you're easing your way into that community.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Awesome. So I'm looking at your profile here, and I see you
Yeah.
have a red ring around your profile picture.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, it's so unnecessary, but with a white background, I feel like it stood out. So you could go on Canva and do that. So upload a picture to Canva, put that thing in there, and then I think there's it says shapes on the left side or something like that, and you just pick that shape. It's a circle. There's a thin one. There's a thick one. Whatever it is. Change the color to whatever it is you want, so there's a good contrast with your profile picture, and then away you go. Then there you go, like you're standing out just a little bit more, and
Yeah.
that's how you're really paying attention to what you're trying to do, because there's no way you would take the effort to do that stupid picture on Canva and
Right.
trying to doodle around with your non-graphic design background and just do something that would stand out. So I did it, and it's actually helped. I remember the minute I changed that, I started getting more engagement. I was like, "Are you serious right now?" And I was
Really?
like, "Okay, it works."
Yeah, it's all about experimenting, and that's how you started off the conversation here. Is that you're like, I've done a little bit of everything. I've at least experimented with pretty much every strategy there is with LinkedIn, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's awesome.
It's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to do.
So you work with a lot of people who are thought leaders and people that build a lot of credibility on LinkedIn. What are some of the people that have been on there for a while, maybe people that have like quite a big of followership and been consistent with sharing? What are some common mistakes that people make that are more established with that?
Well, there's a lot of things that are off-putting on the platform, and it really just depends. Off-putting to a lot of people I know, and maybe business as usual for other people. And one of those is simply growth hacking, right? Like, how many connections can I get as soon as possible? So I know plenty of people who have had success on LinkedIn, and then once it really started to pick up, this is like a complete red flag for me, just for me personally, is, hey, I'm all about people connecting. Step one, like this post. Number two, comment on this post. Number three, connect with everyone in the comments. Like, that is all geared towards all the interaction on your post. That makes your engagement rate go through the roof, and you probably end up with a ton of connections as a result of it. That's just a hack. And I started seeing people I know do that over and over. And I'm like, I can't even follow you anymore. So look, just because you have this many connections doesn't mean you're following them all.
Right.
I constantly unfollow people all day. I don't mind being connected with them because I could be a resource, because they might like my content, and because obviously I eventually want to get to like 30K and whatever. But that kind of stuff is I would say, a mistake. The second biggest mistake, I would actually swap that, is selling. No matter how good the intent is on LinkedIn, no one wants to be sold to. I truly have just not seen it. You know, on Instagram you could sell. You know, on Facebook you could sell, and you don't even need to be sneaky about it. Like, it's ridiculous. But on LinkedIn, I think people actually try and go network and try at least to do things a little bit more old fashioned. They like to build relationships and they like to see where it goes. They hate when, if you and I connect, like whenever we connected, if the first thing that happens is I get a message from you and it's like, hey, check this out, blah, 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 and you pitch me, it's just like, it's over. Because that's just not how it works. Can you imagine if we were not? And I sometimes I say it's like LinkedIn is like a big networking event. But at the same time, if I was at an actual networking event, you and I would probably not start off by just like vomiting our offer. Like, you probably have your elevator pitch ready, which I don't even do. But we would probably feel a lot better if we just didn't talk about business and just got to know each other. And that's exactly what I try to do. So a lot of people are really turned off by this ridiculous long pitch in the message just 2 seconds after you connect. So that's an easy way to just be like, forget it. So it's awful.
Yeah. I see people doing that. And yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's go into a little bit of your story here. When did you start sharing more intentionally online? Like, what did that look like for you?
So September 2018, I quit my job a couple months prior at Amazon, and I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I'm like, well, like, I have to build connections no matter what. And I truly wasn't sure, like, if push came to shove, would I return to a traditional job? If so, then I needed to make sure my LinkedIn was on point and that I had everything captured. So I started, and here's a mistake. This is just came to my mind right now. Connecting with everyone in your company is not the same as connecting. I mean, it's kind of like low-hanging fruit, right? So I mean, that was a mistake. But I was like, I need to be intentional about this. I really, really need to start making connections. And I started testing and testing and testing. So then we get to May 2019 to May 2018 to May 2019. I looked it up just the other day. I had 277,000 views over the course of that 12 months. Well, May 2019 to today, I have like 1.2 million views. And I'm not saying that in an egotistical way. It means I truly was testing and deliberate. So here's one thing I do. If I make a post and people like it, I always, at the end of the day, go to likes and scroll down. And if there's second level connections, I connect with them or I invite them to connect. And the reason is, and I tell my clients this all the time, you're inviting them to like your content more. They already gave you a signal that they enjoyed your content. So why wouldn't you invite them again? Right. So it doesn't feel sleazy to do that. The other kind of low hanging fruit, so to speak, is like veterans. For me, it's like easy, right? Like I am what I would consider a veteran advocate. It's not my job, but it's just part of what I do. So of course I'm going to connect with Marines and sailors and, Army or soldiers and all that other stuff. And then the other piece, if you really are trying to just kind of build your connections and become intentional about it, cool. Like, where'd you go to high school? Where'd you go to college? I mean, all of that. So I just want to take it one step further. Do you have to write this elaborate, beautiful message like, I would love to welcome you to my network? Like, no, like, just don't. Like, if you're trying to get traction, just start connecting with people and the content will speak for itself. But I literally got so many messages today. It's so funny. I should have like prepared them for this. You know what? Here we go. I'm gonna read a couple of these for you.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
So
this is from today.
This is from today, and I was just like that's just too heavy for me. So here's one. Great person, I'm sure, but thanks for becoming a connection. If I can ever support you in any way, personally or professionally, please let me know. Have a wonderful day. So, and this person is a VP. Awesome. Like, not a problem, but there's no way I'm going to ask you for personal professional help. Like, that's just, it's just odd. The intent is good. So we always say in the Marine Corps, good intent, bad judgment. But I'm just like, like, I don't extend that offer myself. Here's another one. We should talk one day, Rich. Here's my number. I'm like, No way. Like, there's no way I'm calling you for what? Like, we're connected, but now I'm regretting that connection. And then here's one. Thank you. Sorry, this one's kind of funny. Oh man, this one's the best. I'd like to add you to my pro network. I see we have a lot of mutual interests. I think this would be a valid connection. I'm like, great. So there you go, man. Like, does it have to be weird? Like, no, it doesn't have to be weird. It just needs to be real. And I would never, if you and I met on the street, say, welcome to my network. If I could ever help you personally, professionally, let me know. Like, I wouldn't even do that unless we talked for 15 minutes and I thought you were an actual good human being. Yeah. So that's just the way it is. But yeah, man, like, that's just connect with the easy stuff first, and then that'll help you find better connections.
Yeah. So if someone, like, say for example, like, you have a bunch of second layer connections engaging on your content and you're going to connect with them directly, like, what kind of message do you send to those people?
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Am I back? Are we good?
Yeah.
For everyone watching, I'm using a DSLR. I'm trying to test this out. So this is like unfair, but it's good quality. So I wanted to try it.
That's great. Quality,
let's see here. Okay. So what was the last question? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So for, like, let's say a bunch of people engage in your content today, and you see that there's a lot of second layered connections. So that you want to, connect with those people so that you can be more engaging with them.
Yep.
What do you usually say when you send that connection request?
So here's one thing I do. I mean, and it's very, very similar to what I just kind of mentioned. I say, hey, I noticed you like, I noticed you liked my post on, personal branding, or I noticed you liked my post on not drinking for a year, or I noticed you enjoyed, left an awesome comment. Here's actually a better way. If they leave a comment and you're not connected, that's an even better sign. So I always write them, like, I try and move that comment to the inbox and just get to know each other a little bit more, because it's just kind of obnoxious to try and really get to know each other in the comments. So I go and I just say, hey, thanks, I really appreciate your comment. Like, a lot of people don't take the time to do that. So blah, blah, blah. And then we go on from there. But it's always real. There's really nothing pitchy behind it. It's exactly how I would want to talk had we met in real life. So I thank them for, I thank them, I guess is what I'm saying. I thank them for liking my content, engaging with my content, because it means something to me, because I actually take a lot of time to make sure I do it every single day, sometimes twice a day. And I acknowledge it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
Thanks.
All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. So we talked about how you started sharing on LinkedIn because you had quit your job and you wanted to figure out how to make connections so that you can sort of either start a business or maybe go back to another job, just like get a more solid community. So, like, why LinkedIn? Like, why making connections as like your outlet for direction?
LinkedIn, I knew other people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn certainly was responsible. Like, LinkedIn is where you go stalk people, from companies that you want to work at. So that was kind of like my first experience. Like, let me connect with everyone possible in this industry or at this company so I could talk to them, get a feel for it, because my entire goal with anything I did before I was an entrepreneur was to try and get as much information as possible so I could make an educated decision. Like, that's just the way it was. So that being said, it was the go-to. Like, if I go on Instagram, I mean, which I was super unfamiliar with anyway, you just never knew what you were going to see. And were any of those connections actually going to be fruitful in helping me necessarily become an entrepreneur or really have some kind of safety net in terms of a network if I were to return to the traditional workforce? No. And then Facebook, like, no, it's pretty much just my mom and my aunts liking all my content. So it's just like, that's not going to happen. So LinkedIn was a no-brainer for me in terms of that, because you can really do some decent research on LinkedIn and just find out. And here's the thing. Someone doesn't have to be at that company anymore. They could have worked at that company. And then you could ask them, like, hey, did you, why'd you leave? They're like, I actually loved it there. I just got a better opportunity. That's a good sign, right? That's a good takeaway. Or someone could have left a company and they're like, hey, dude, stay away. And I'm like, thanks, that's even better. But it's just really, I really think at the end of the day, the way that platform is structured is people are really trying to help people, where it's more just about aesthetics and mindless, content, so to speak, on some of the other platforms. So I knew professionally I needed to lean into that a little bit more.
And you leaned into it because you had to make a choice whether you wanted to pursue entrepreneurship or get another job. But either way, LinkedIn's going to be the direction you need to go with that.
Absolutely. I mean, it was complete no brainer. I mean, there's not another platform like it, really. So it just made sense because, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a scared factor when you're not sure if your business that doesn't even exist is going to work out.
Right. So what did the early shares for you look like when you were on LinkedIn, starting to make these connections and build the community and start this whole effort?
Like the content, like what did the content look like?
Yeah, like when you were sharing content back then.
Man, I had no idea what to write. I truly had no idea. And that's the thing. It's fine to not have an idea of how to use that platform, but at some point you should be strategic about it to get what you want, right? If I want to lose weight, I need to be strategic about it. That means I probably need to count calories and I need to do some cardio and I definitely need to lift, right? If I am trying to get in front of some of the most important people at a small company that I would like to work for, I'd like them to consider me, then I probably need to be a little bit strategic about it, make sure I'm connecting with the right people, give them some value somehow, or have activity in which I'm showing that I am an expert in this industry or something along those lines. So early on, though, I had no strategy. I mean, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I would put random pictures. I mean, I'm trying to think of my oldest posts. I don't know if I'm like purposely blocking it from my memory, but I just didn't put anything relevant. Yeah. So what LinkedIn is not is just a place to share your daily thoughts, like your daily, your small little thoughts. I'm trying to think. Like today I had a conversation with a client of mine. I went and filmed him, and he was talking about bad leadership. And if I just 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I'd put, bad leaders, there's no room for them. Like that's like the type of something I would put no effort into it whatsoever. But now I would say, okay, let me think to a bad leadership experience. I could probably tell a story about it, and I could tell in that story how that helped me evolve into becoming a better leader, because I wanted to avoid some of those mistakes, because I actually learned something from that experience. And I said, I'm not going to put myself in a position to influence people in the wrong way. So, I mean, in the beginning, it was just a complete mixed bag. And yeah, I wish I could just like pull up a bunch of posts for you right now, but it was pretty mindless. And as time went on, I started realizing, okay, I started sharing about my journey, which is unique because like if you're in a traditional workforce, like your journey is kind of like you just go to work and you do the same thing almost all the time. But for me, it was a little bit interesting because I had a military background, and it was just like, I don't know if people were engaged because it was like, this dude's going to fall on his face, or if people were engaged because it was actually interesting. But Gary Vee says it all the time, document, don't create. So I kind of took the chance on doing that on LinkedIn, and it worked out really awesome.
Awesome. So is that when maybe like May 2019 timeframe when the more story stuff started?
Yeah, I think probably a little bit before that. And I got my first real client in March. So I was like all in on that. But yeah, right around March to May timeframe, I started being like, okay, like here's really the journey. And yeah, it started, I don't want to say taking off. It just started getting a little bit more traction, a little bit more interest, and I was very happy about that.
Well, you started learning the system more. You knew that you bring more of your personality, your stories, and your learnings.
I think a lot of people are reluctant to share their personality, and they feel like you have to tailor what you're offering to the platform the right way. Now, here's the thing: Facebook. Whatever I post on Facebook isn't probably going to work on LinkedIn. What I post on LinkedIn probably isn't going to work on Instagram. What I post on Instagram probably doesn't work on YouTube, like almost guaranteed. So does that mean your personality has to shift? No, but your strategy, sir. Sorry.
That's all right. I still got audio.
Let's see. That's weird. Everything's working. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, for those of you listening, just Rich's camera went out. He's
Yeah,
experimenting with his DSLR.
that is weird. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch this thing to just my webcam. It'll take 2 seconds, and we'll be good. Your browser has not lost connection. That's what it's saying. Here we go. Ooh, sorry, that's not the right camera. And we'll go here and here. All right, awesome.
Oh wow!
So
yeah, cameras all over.
yeah. So well, I'm so sorry. That caused me to get distracted and lose my train of
Yeah.
thought.
So there's something I wanted to ask on that anyway, which is, a lot of times when people start sharing, they have to overcome barriers. And you talked about how it's difficult sometimes for people to bring their personality in.
That's
so
right.
for you personally, did you like have any worry around that, or you felt comfortable out the gate? Like, what was that for you?
I am an open book. So what I immediately did, and it probably seemed very vindictive, was I was just kind of talking about a lot of my bad experiences at my former workplace. I also kind of started just talking about things I've learned, problems I was running into, problems I was solving in entrepreneurship, and it just became like, look, if you're either all in or not, and if you're not, then that's fine. Like, I get it, but I just wanted to be unafraid of, I just want to be kind of unapologetically myself. And I'm not talking like rock star status, like I do what I want, that's not what I mean. I just mean I'm not afraid to talk about things, and I'm not afraid to talk about myself. I'm not afraid of being perceived as indulgent, and I'm certainly not afraid to talk about what other people might be able to learn from some of my experiences. So that's just how it was, and I became really, really comfortable. Now, here's what really happened as a result of that. Because I presented myself online exactly how I am, once I started doing podcasts and interviews, I would get the most amazing feedback. And that's because I was just myself. Like, I learned how to be myself more often than I ever have. And what that translated to into was just amazing interviews. And the people were like, dude, that was really comfortable. That was really good, because I didn't come in there with a set of questions. I didn't come in there asking them the same stuff that they were going to regurgitate the same answers for as all the other podcasts they've been on. So it really transcended a lot. And I'm glad I did it. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying that's easy at all. But you could definitely dip your toe in the water to see kind of how you feel about it, and not share personal things necessarily for the metrics, right? Like, you're sharing it because you actually believe it might be able to help someone, or because it's just good value added content.
Yeah, that brings up a previous guest that I had, which is Ben Killoy. It's episode 37. You know him?
Yeah.
So he's a military veteran dad who has a podcast, and he started out blogging, and with all the blogs, he was super vulnerable and sharing. And then when he started the podcast, he instantly was already super deep because he had that training from being vulnerable ahead of time with the blog.
Yes, he's a great dude. He's a fantastic dude. But yes, like, practicing that kind of vulnerability, in less intimidating places will, I think, get you to a place where you could just be however you want to be.
Awesome. So I've had a lot of previous or listeners requests that I ask from just whatever you're comfortable with from a high level, like sources of income, because a lot of people create communities online, create platforms, start sharing, building followership and community, and there's a lot of different ways to capitalize on that, as far as just to be able to make a living and in an authentic way that you're actually helping people. So I'm just curious if you'd mind sharing what you've experienced.
I have not done any real social selling. So I would say that my answer is not going to be a great answer, because although I absolutely know I could make a Kajabi course and put something out there, that I could have all kinds of free resources that I could give people and turn it into a funnel to this landing page that takes them to here, and then I, bump up the offer if they say no, or I mean, whatever it is, like all these different upsells and downsells, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I haven't done that because I'm super focused on trying to serve a small base of like extremely amazing clients. And we purposely are not in a position where we are trying to scale like massively, because the wheels could come off this thing, right? If you do it the wrong way. Like, look, having too many clients or interests is a great problem to have, but my income comes from serving my clients. We film, edit, and distribute content for them, specifically on LinkedIn. And obviously, like I told you, I've been testing it and testing it and testing it. And look, I am not some of the people out there like Shay Rowbottom. Excuse me. She's a friend of mine. She kills it. She has 20,000 followers. She gets like thousands and thousands and thousands of views, like, in the first hour. But I'm not that. I am very much, I feel like I'm back in the military sometimes. Like I'm on just like a hike, and I know it's like I have 15 miles to go or something like that. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just like kind of heads down. So although there are potential other revenue streams, which you could argue, or your audience could argue, that it's kind of risky not having more than one, I'm just not interested in doing all that other stuff yet until I absolutely know that we're brilliant in the basics with our core offerings, because that's the most important. Because if your core offerings are great and you have good customer testimonials, client testimonials, then you will have to do no marketing. I don't do marketing. I literally just got off the phone with the client. I'm like, I just rely on all the content I put out to give me good inbound leads of qualified people. And that is pretty much how it works. So the revenue stream is strictly from us providing a service.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. The conversation I had earlier today, actually, she talked a lot about, because she helps people with building personal brands.
Nice.
And she talked about how, you can start with using your skill set to deliver value. Because she didn't like doing the sponsored stuff anyway. She's been paid to do sponsored stuff, but she found
sponsored stuff is just designed to make you spend more and more money anyway. I mean, it's a racket. So but
and so you built a skill set, optimizing LinkedIn, creating these high quality videos, maybe chopping them up and recording in a streamlined manner, and then you brought that skill set to create an offering, and it's sort of feeding itself, it seems like. So that's
exactly it. That was well articulated. I should find out how to make sure I say it that quickly.
Well, this is recorded, so you can have it.
Yes, I'll steal it. I'll definitely steal it. But yeah, that's exactly what it's been. And you could really get yourself into trouble by trying to learn too much. So like, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? Do those paths converge? If they do, then you're probably onto something, because you could probably help someone do something and charge money for it. Once you start trying, like, I'm not a Facebook ads expert. We absolutely could do Facebook ads, and we killed it for one client of ours, but for whatever reason, the offering just wasn't resonating with the people, but they were getting tons and tons and tons and tons of clicks. I mean, it was great. But I wouldn't consider myself a Facebook ad expert. So I'm not going to go all in and try and learn Facebook ads. What I'm going to try and do is make sure that our core offerings, like I mentioned, bring us enough revenue where I could probably hire an Instagram expert or a Facebook ads expert or whatever it is. Because you know what? I like to know of that stuff, but I don't need to. Like, just be good at what you're good at, and then people will know you for that.
There's so much depth to each platform, and even each niche of types of shares and types of advertising on each platform, that like to try to be an expert in everything is just way too overwhelming. I mean, for most people, it just starts with having one platform and really figure out that one type of share and sort of.
That's right. I mean, it's just exhausting trying to keep up with everything. Technology changes too fast. Algorithms change too fast. It's too easy to become deflated anyway, because one day you could just be rocking it, and then the next day you could be like, wow, I lost that many followers. Like, what am I doing wrong? And it has probably nothing to do with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, before I open the floor for you to talk about the best way people can reach out to you and connect with you, knowing that a lot of listeners here are either struggling to start sharing or they're trying to level up their sharing, do you have any last words for the listeners here today?
If you want to share content, there's really nothing stopping you. Okay. It's all self-induced. And I'm not saying the fear isn't palpable or real. What I'm saying is, if you focus your effort on what you're going to share in terms of does this serve someone or a segment of the population? No matter how big or how small, then you will probably be going and heading in the right direction, and then people will start to resonate with you. Now, what you have to know is it takes a freaking long time. It just takes a long time. Like, that's just the way it is. And if you can't appreciate like that kind of, ugly path, then it's not going to work out. And I would say done is better than perfect. And that's so important to me because, we just lost a client. We're no longer working together. And the reason is like, there was just so much analysis paralysis. I mean, it was awful. And I'm like, we have all this content we're sitting on, like, let us do our thing. Trust us. Like, we got it. We understand it. I know it better than anyone I know. And it just wasn't there. Done is better than perfect. Okay. So I used this scenario not long ago, but just imagine this. If you put out something and it doesn't do well and you had mistakes and it wasn't your best content, then what's the problem with that? Nothing. Okay. Like, your first podcast is probably not your best podcast. You probably get better every single time. You probably listen back to it and be like, I could have asked a question like this. I hate editing my podcast because I'm like, that question took 15 freaking minutes. That was awful. So that's why I have people edit for me now, because I'm just like, dude, it's so bad. But, getting back to it, like, let's just say you take the time and you put the effort in and you go on to your respective platform and you're putting in the time and the content and you're focusing on serving. What's going to happen is at some point you'll have a following. And then when a lot of people are watching, when a lot of people are actually watching and paying attention, you will now have the strategy we kind of talked about. You will know how to serve a larger audience better. You will know what's working and what's not working. You will know what day is a better day to post than another. You will know that this is a subject area that I probably don't need to be talking about because it's not one of my core offerings, or it's not like a skill set that's, good for me. So that's what I would say. Don't be afraid. Just focus on the other people on the other side of the message, on how you can serve them, not how they'll perceive you, but how you can serve them. And I truly think that is going to be what helps you kind of get over the hump.
Yeah. Great advice. Done is better than perfect. I couldn't agree more with that. And it takes a long time. That's why having a strong why is important, so you can overcome all the barriers in your way.
Yes.
To push through. All right. So, for those of us, listening in today, what's the best way that someone can reach out to you and say that, hey, they got value from what you shared today, or where do you want people to engage with you?
Yeah. So please, I obviously LinkedIn. So, Rich Cardona on LinkedIn. It'll say video strategist. He mentioned it earlier, but yeah, there's like a red circle around me, so you can't mistake it that much. But especially if you heard from this podcast, let me know, so that way I could give you the feedback, because that's really important, right? So I love to make sure, like, hey, I got a bunch of messages. So absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, at Rich Cardona and an underscore. But if you just put in Rich Cardona, you'll find me. But yeah, that's where I love to kind of meet up with people. And then on YouTube, I'm really trying to get into YouTube. I'm spreading myself a little thin, but it's important that I have a little bit longer form content, because it doesn't belong on LinkedIn. So right. YouTube is Rich Cardona. And then last thing, man, this is a lot of stuff, but the Leadership Locker, that is focused on just helping entrepreneurs through me interviewing influencers, and just giving a ton of knowledge out there. And the interviews are fantastic. I've had Gary Vee on there. I've had Jason Pfeiffer, who's the editor-in-chief at Entrepreneur Magazine. I mean, I have big names that I'm hoping to get on, and I absolutely think it'll happen. So follow me there, and I appreciate all your support. And I thank you for having me on. I'm very, very flattered at the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks again for coming on. I'm gonna have links to all those, all your social medias, your website, everything on the show notes for this episode on my website, whyinfluence.com. So thanks so much for coming on today and sharing with us.
Thank you.
And before I let you go, because I'm on a journey of trying to grow and get better with everything. I'm just curious, do you have any feedback from me in regards to this podcast or?
No, it was smooth. It was smooth. I felt like, I think you might have some prepared questions, which is completely fine, because, if there's a gap, right? Like, let's just say we're not hitting it off and you have a gap, like, yes, that's where those questions come in. So, hey, let's switch gears for a second and talk about that. But no, I don't have any immediate feedback. what I like to do is I'm going to ask you for the recording of this because I'm going to like to repurpose it. But through that is where I get to see kind of like what could have been better on both sides. So it's more of like a collective thing. I always like to look at a problem, so to speak, from the same side of the table. You know what I mean? Like we're looking at the same wall together. So I could be like, oh, here's something. But no, man, like I think this was great. I mean, I obviously had a good time. If it seems like I didn't, let me know. But I was very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, no, and you're a great guest. I appreciate you coming on. We got a ton of value from you. So thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.